Hey, everybody, coming up on this upcoming episode of the Cutting Edge podcast, we're going off the tracks a little bit, and we're going to talk specifically about restoring the meaning of Memorial Day with the help of Carry the Load. Tune in.
Thought of all the soldiers who died to defend this country of ours in some foreign land. How they gave all and lived by a code only a soldier knows. I'll carry that load tonight for all those who sacrificed.
Welcome to this week's episode of the Cutting Edge podcast. Hard to believe that we are into May, and in the not too distant future, Memorial Day is on our doorstep, which signals the official start of summer. This week's episode, episode 4 for season number 2, the title is Restoring the Meaning of Memorial Day with Carry the Load. So for those of you that aren't aware, there's an organization out there called Carry the Load. We're going to learn a whole bunch about them today and their mission and what they're after. But before we get into the episode itself, just a few mentions to make. This wouldn't be possible without our show sponsors, but even before our show sponsors, you're going to notice that I'm in my home office today. We all ended up being remote because my partner in crime and normal co-host Tyler Talman is under the weather and didn't want to infect everybody. So Tyler, even though you're not here and you're not with us, thank you, sir, for being a great supporter and participant in the show. In terms of folks that are helping us make this happen, we've got Texas Assist Surgical Assist Staffing here in the Dallas area. We've got Carrington Advisors, which is Tyler's group. We have Carry the Load, which is the organization we're talking about today, as well as Lakewood Orthopaedics and Sports Medicine, which is Dr. Terry Gemas, who's one of our esteemed guests today. We ask that you find us on all of your social media channels. Hit us up. We're approaching 100 followers on YouTube. We obviously have LinkedIn. We have Facebook. You can find us on Spotify. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can also find us on Twitter at TCE MedPod. You can also follow us on Instagram at The Cutting Edge Pod. A lot of this wouldn't be possible without the help of all of our partners, and especially the time for our guests. So we're excited to welcome Dr. Terry Gemas and Todd Boeding, who is on the board with Carry the Load and a former Marine, to join us today. Guys, thanks so much for joining us today. I think where we're going to start here, let's start with who you guys are, how you're connected to the organization, and let's start with Terry Gemas first, because Terry, it was through our professional relationship that I became aware of Carry the Load, and you have grown to be quite close with this group, and it's a very meaningful group for you. So if you could just share a little bit about who you are and your background and what you do for your day job, and we'll get started there.
Yeah, I'm a local orthopedic surgeon here in Dallas, Texas, and a few years ago, I'd say around 2013 or so, I met through a mutual friend, Clint Bruce.
Todd, we've got Terry, Dr. Gemas, who's a local orthopedic surgeon here in DFW and involved from the charitable side, helping raise money for the group. Right. Help us understand who you are. What's your background? Are you former military? You share with the audience a little bit about you.
Yeah, don't let the long hair fool you. I actually, the vast majority of my life, I had a very tight haircut. I was in the Marine Corps for almost 15 years. Like so many people coming out of the military, you lose a sense of purpose. When you're in the military, you have a very clear-cut sense of purpose. You know why you do what you do. It's what gets you up in the morning. You feel like you're making a difference. And then you get into the civilian world, and with all due respect to everyone in the civilian world, you all of a sudden just kind of start going along. Carry the Load for me personally helped restore that that sense of purpose. And the reason it restored the sense of purpose is because Carry the Load is, our mission is about restoring the true meaning of Memorial Day. So like Terry, I met Clint Bruce, and he's a very, very gregarious figure. I mean, when he walks into a room, he commands the room very, very quickly. He's a very large man. I mean, I'm looking at you, and you appear to be a good sized guy. He'd dwarf you. He really would. But his personality
you're
is
talking
even
about Clint,
bigger.
Right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, he's a big dude. I mean, there's not many guys that make me feel tiny, but he's definitely one of them.
Well, and even his beard makes you look tiny, because you have this, this really nicely trimmed, goatee. But from his standpoint, he's got a full on beard, and he's just a massive personality. But the other guy that started it with him, a guy by the name of Stephen Holly, just the exact opposite. Looks like he's walked off of a recruiting poster. Really perfectly chiseled face, good looking guy. I'm not saying that Clint's not good looking, but he's not. So I'll just make sure I tell him that anyway. But the fact of the matter is, these guys had a vision to get America involved in restoring the true meaning of Memorial Day. And it was something that was born out of a lot of anger, to be perfectly honest, but they were able to take that anger and channel it. And, I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but they get guys like Terry to be the champions and the fuel of the grassroots movement. For me, it was just an opportunity to have that sense of belonging and purpose again.
It's interesting. CTL, as the insiders call it, is now in its 11th year. My understanding, and again, correct me for knowing probably less than I should hosting the podcast here, but their primary fundraiser for the year is really it culminates in Memorial Day here in Dallas.
That's correct? Accurate. Yes, correct. It's it really, the month of May is, when it comes to raising funds, that's our big time. And I'm going to set Terry up for, to kind of talk about how he's been able to be part of that fuel. But keep in mind that when this thing started out, it was way more, and it still is, it's way more about making sure America knows why Memorial Day exists, and they know who Memorial Day is about. Because for all of us, Memorial Day is one day a year. For the families of those who will never see their loved one again, Memorial Day is 365 days a year. And so, but there are still a lot of people that benefit from the fundraising. And again, Terry is one of our top partners in that regard. And, we use the term champion, and he's a true champion of it. And so, this is a good opportunity for me to shut up and let Terry kind of jump in, because without guys like Terry, it just does not have the fuel.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you say that, right? And Terry, is there a family connection to the military or to those that serve our community? How did you gain an interest in this and say, hey, I really want to invest time to help spread what their purpose is?
Well, I've always had a great reverence for the military, and I'd be remiss at saying, and I think Todd would want me to say this, it's not, CTL is not just about the military. Also, it's police officers, it's fire personnel, it's other first responders. So when we talk about Carry the Load, we're talking about them too. So we don't want to forget about all the local heroes that we have also, not just the ones that go to other shores and protect us. But when it comes to the military, I've always had a reverence for them. And I think it's born out of where I come from. I was born in January of 1967, and I had an uncle that was a Marine like Todd, and he was killed in Vietnam 2 weeks before I was born. And his name is Terry Gemas. I was named after him. I was not going to be named Terry. So I've always,
Wow.
my whole life, I've always lived with that in me, I guess, if you will. He was a gentleman that we always wonder, all of our lives would be different probably if he was still around. And as somebody who never even knew him, I feel a connection with him. So I've always had that connection with the military. And I met Clint back in 2013, and I met him through a mutual friend of Todd's and mine, Josh Lewis, another retired Marine. And I remember Josh telling me, he said, hey, I'm going to go on this walk for 20 hours or so, and will you sponsor me and give some money to my cause? And I had such a great reverence for Josh. I said, I'm going to give you money. I don't even know what the heck you're doing. It doesn't sound like that smart of an idea to me, walking for 20 hours, but I'm going to give money to this because I think so highly of you. And so I just gave money without even thinking about it. And then I learned more about it. I talked more to Clint, talked more to Josh, and I just got hooked on their foundation because I was looking to channel my, I guess my outside interests outside of my day job into something else. And that's kind of how I got hooked on it. And I've been walking with them ever since. I think 2014 might've been my first year. I believe. So 2014 was my first year. So this will be do the math, I guess my 8th or 9th year.
Ninth year participating. That's
yeah. So that's what it is. But and sorry if I'm rambling here a little bit, but I get excited when I talk about these guys. But Todd kind of touched on a little bit, but the true essence and the purpose of both why Stephen Holly and Clint Bruce started this foundation is to get guys like me that did not serve, but to help us understand the true meaning of Memorial Day. And their mission is accomplished when they get a guy like me to put my heart and soul into an organization like this and spread the word. And when that happens, then those guys have done their job. And that's the way I kind of look at it. And, it made me kind of get outside my comfort box to do some things that I may not have done if I didn't, A, believe in the cause, B, believe in America, and C, just love these men and women that I've gotten to know.
Kind of brings me to my next set of questions. I mean, this is an organization that has a chance to impact hundreds of thousands and millions of lives, because it's not just those in the military, Todd, as you said before, but it's all the family members that are left behind. Can you share a little bit about kind of the reach of and maybe help our audience understand the scope of the people who could potentially be affected as Carry the Load continues to grow and its mission grows?
Yeah, the thing about Carry the Load, a lot of people will refer to it as a charity, and to an extent, it is a charity, through tax classification and things like that, but it's really way more. It's a movement. It's a movement because it's not just about giving money. It's about doing things. It's about honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice. And let's be honest, there's nothing we can do to bring them back. So it's not necessarily about them as much as it is making sure that their family understands that their sacrifice mattered. Now, these people didn't know us. Okay, very, very similar to Terry. I have an uncle who was killed in Vietnam. He was killed in Vietnam in May of '68. My mother found out she was pregnant with me a month later. She never had time to grieve. And I didn't realize that until we used one of the most important things that we have as our assets, and that is the storyboard. And the storyboard, and Terry's uncle is up on one of the storyboards as well. it's such a very, in some ways, a muted nod, a mooted nod to these people, but it's like a traveling headstone, if you will. And I surprised my own mother with a storyboard of her brother. And I saw her break down like she has never broken down, like I'd never seen her break down before or since. And I came to realize the impact that this organization has just by simply telling a loved one, we acknowledge that you lost someone very special, and we want you to understand that that death mattered. And so that's the kind of impact. And again, this was in my own family. I had no idea the kind of impact I could have, even on my own family. And so when you talk about that, and then you exponentially grow that, and you start looking at economies of force and scale. Well, now we're using an Olympic torch style relay starting from 5 different points throughout the country, going through the 48 continental United States, covering 20,000 miles, culminating on the start of the event in Dallas on Memorial Day weekend. So to your point, it touches a lot of people.
I mean, that's huge. I mean, how many people do you think will physically participate if you just had to take a wild-eyed screaming guess in the torch style relay on those 5 routes by the time it gets here to Dallas?
I should probably know the impact a little better off the top of my head since I'm actually a member of the board. So thanks for calling me out, CJ. But I mean, it really truly is, hundreds of thousands, if not millions. It's almost hard to know the impressions that we make on people's brains, but it's a lot of people.
One of the coolest things, Todd, is the bus. And I recall the first time I saw the bus at River John Park there in Dallas, and then seeing the videos of the bus out on the road supporting the people who are actively walking. And man, it's so much. Think about how many impressions the Carry the Load logo and brand and presence makes in essentially 30 days. It's almost beyond comprehension for me. But well, I think.
Yeah, I'll tell you what's really fun though, not to cut you off, but I want to pull Terry back into this because the first time Terry and I met was actually on one of these relays in North Carolina. And I mean, I'll never forget it. He and Ron, his good friend and now a friend of mine as well. That's where I first met them. And walking through North Carolina, what an unbelievably patriotic state. I mean, just everybody, because we carry the flag, not the torch, obviously. But I mean, people honking and giving you a thumbs up and raised fist in the air. I mean, it was one of the coolest things I've ever experienced, and that was one of my first times out on the relay, and that's where I met Terry.
Yeah, for your listeners out there, CJ, imagine this. Imagine, give or take, the 1st of May. So we're already in May right now as we're recording this, but around the 1st of May, end of April, there's 3 separate relays starting across America. One, the West Coast starts in Seattle. I believe the Midwest starts in Minneapolis, I believe. And then the East Coast, is it starting in Boston, Todd? Is that right? Boston, I think still, or is it West?
The East Coast is at West Point.
West Point, yeah. So imagine these kick off, and you're talking a major production, but they have this time down to the minute of all their stops on all these separate relays, making their way to Dallas, to River Shawn Park, to hit River Shawn Park on Sunday, a Memorial weekend, all at the same time. And along the way, they have these little segments. So for example, where I met Todd, it was in Charlotte. So they were going through Charlotte, probably the middle of May, whenever that was back in 2000, I want to say 15 or 16. And I walked a segment of maybe a 4 or 5 mile segment from one fire station to another fire station. And it's a continuous, they're carrying the flag all the way until they get to Dallas. And every other relay, the West Coast, the Midwest, doing the same thing. You being a Wisconsin boy, see Wisconsin right now in the Midwest leg. I know that because a buddy of mine is took part in it up in Onalaska, and it's pretty amazing when you think about the production that goes into that. And they all got their own 18 wheelers, like you said, the buses and all that stuff. So it's a pretty impressive sight. The best memory I have, though, is I went, I think the year later, 2016, and went right down Fifth Avenue in New York City and went down to Ground Zero. And yeah, so I was on that tour, and I also was in West Point too. So West Point was pretty moving. So yeah, I think for all your listeners that are interested, if you're listening anywhere in the country, you can get on the website and find out exactly where the relay is. And if it's close by, you can go by and say hello and show your support for this relay.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So, obviously in this process, we know that relays traditionally are used as a method to raise funds. Help our audience understand, Todd, kind of the general scope of how much money could possibly be raised with this walkathon and ending on Memorial Day. So not just the exposure of helping restore the true meaning of Memorial Day, but now the fundraising aspect of it.
Yeah, so we typically are during this event now. We're going to be raising in excess of a couple $1 million. Which keep in mind that's not our primary mission, and that's the thing. That doesn't mean that we don't try to do that, because there are still a lot of people that are left behind as a result of someone making the ultimate sacrifice. There are also a lot of those who made a tremendous sacrifice, but maybe not the ultimate sacrifice. And what I mean by that is maybe they're missing a limb, they have tragic burns, any number of injuries. But all of that money, I say all of it, 94 cents of every dollar, which is something that we are very proud of. 94 cents of every dollar goes to our programs. That's an incredibly high number in the 501c.
That's crazy. I mean, you never ever hear that high of a number from other organizations that have this ability to impact people like you guys do.
Well, and that's true. And I'm going to tell you again, that's because of our champions like Terry, who go out there, they understand the bigger picture. And I mean, we have very, very few paid staff. We are predominantly a volunteer organization. And, we've actually looked at that though, going, golly, exponentially, we could grow this thing and really make some positive impacts. I mean, for crying out loud, we just came out of 20 years of war. Unfortunately, there's still going to be a lot of need that's left to fill. And unfortunately, as a country, we have a short memory on things like that. So we're actually looking at how we can grow this a little bit more. But we do want to maintain that, that position of, 94-ish cents of every dollar going to our programs.
Gotcha. So, guys, there's one of two ways to reach people, right? You can reach people directly, or you can reach organizations that then reach out to those in need directly. How does Carry the Load do it?
Well, actually, we use both. We use both.
Okay.
We utilize our relationships with a lot of organizations. We go straight to, but I'd say the majority of our funds come from the peer-to-peer fundraising that Terry's such a huge part of.
Gotcha. And obviously there's a lot of organizations out there that that their mission is to support wounded veterans or the families of those that have passed or whatnot. How does Carry the Load decide who they support in a given year? What's that look like?
So I'll take that because I've been very involved in that part of it for a while. But as Terry mentioned earlier, we've got this is not just about the military community, and that was a very conscious decision. The reason for that is that those of us who have donned the uniform, when you're overseas, there's no way you're going to go overseas and put your own life on the line and leave your family unattended and unsafe. Therefore, you have to look at those police, fire, and rescue, that personnel who takes care of our streets while we're trying to take care of America across the pond. And so we wanted to make sure that we included them. Now, that's one of the qualifications. Is the organization directly supporting military, police, fire, rescue, or families thereof? And then from there, it goes into a lot of different directions. There are physical scars that need to be healed. There are mental, emotional scars that need to be healed. There are children left behind that need to be supported. The government, for all the grief that the VA gets, they do a lot of good, but there's so much support needed, they can't do it all. And that's why organizations like ours exist, and where I think we are a very different breed than a lot of folks. I mean, there are other organizations that are similar to ours that I won't name because, quite honestly, I don't like the way they operate. And what I mean by that is they don't necessarily let people know who all the nonprofit partners are. In our world, all of our nonprofit partners are known. All of our nonprofit partners are our champions. There are also our beneficiaries. We work together under a no wrong door concept where, I may come to your organization because I have this problem. And you assess it and say, you know what? I'm not the one you need to talk to. You need to go talk to Terry's organization. That's how we accomplish this, not by keeping those things secret, but by making sure that everybody is fully transparent. So I think I'm answering your question, but if I'm not. Oh yeah,
for sure. I mean, that's huge for our audience to know and understand. I've been blessed to have been able to participate in several of the 20-hour walks. Although I think I only did it once where I actually walked all 20 hours, and there's pain.
You got sucked into that?
I totally got sucked into it. I mean, I even had the right socks. We had the Vaseline between the toes, and dude, I still hurt for a couple days. It was an awesome experience, like being able to see veterans. We had one situation where I think it was about 3:00 in the morning, and we're coming up on a drink stop, and there's a whole group of us together, but there's another group in front of us, and out of the shadows walks a wounded veteran. You could tell he had an artificial limb, and he said the guy's name. The guy's head turned, and they embraced and just broke out crying. Come to find out that they hadn't seen each other since the battlefield when he became injured.
Wow.
And that was so impactful for me, for somebody who's never served in the military. None of my direct family has ever served in the military. My father-in-law was injured in the line of duty as a Dallas firefighter and nearly died and was forced into medical retirement. So that was my attraction to the organization. But to see the brotherhood that truly exists, and the fact that I got your back, you got my back, and this is an individual that needed that emotional healing through that embrace, right? That was a very, very small part of the whole picture. But I've not participated the last few years, but I've done my best to support the organization with my wallet. And, I think, Terry, I'd love to hear from you. Your group is Team Grayson, correct?
Yes.
So maybe talk to our audience about Team Grayson. How did you come up with Team Grayson, and how do you raise money?
Yeah, well, I'll answer the second one first. I basically raise money through just word of mouth and friends, is how I raise money. The name Team Grayson is inspired by my first son, Grayson, who passed away in 2011 unexpectedly at the age of 3. So we named it after him. When he died, me personally, I never went through a grieving process, but I turned his death into a positive in the sense that it told me it's time to, as the saying goes, get busy living. And so that's when I was in search of how can I translate these emotions I have into something positive. And when it all kind of just came together perfectly when I met Josh Lewis and then Clint and then everybody else. And I said, this is the organization. And I had always intended to start a foundation myself, but I said, I don't have to, because I think Todd hit on it, nailed it perfectly. I think Carry the Load does it right in the sense that they're very open-armed, but at the same time, they're very careful in how they grow the foundation. It's not by mistake that they do give 94 cents of every dollar to help someone. That's an extremely efficient program. And
well, I find it, Terry and Todd, I find it interesting too. It's not just individuals. Like, I think one of the things that really took me back the last time I engaged a couple years ago at the walkathon here in Dallas was the level of corporate engagement with the likes of Frito-Lay and Chase Bank, and I believe Southwest Airlines, if I'm not mistaken, was a highlighted corporate partner. I mean, you've got some Fortune 500 support in behind you too. Is that correct?
Yeah, we do, and I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Chase and AT&T, because they're right up there, towards the top. I think where this is very different is, a lot of companies are looking for corporate engagement. They're looking for ways for their employees to be a part of something and make a difference. And in both the cases of our, let me rephrase that. In the case of all of our main sponsors, that's what they're finding, is that these people want to get out and be involved, because a lot of them, either they were part of the 1% who put the uniform on every day, or they were part of the extended family of that 1%. And so it's very meaningful to them, because you touched on something that I think is really important for people to understand. The story you told about the gentleman who had lost his leg. This should be, we should be celebrating someone's life who's no longer with us, because the reality is their life gave us a lot of joy. But unfortunately, a lot of times we can't get to that point because there's a healing process that has to take place before you can celebrate their life. And what Terry was talking about, yes, he went through a period where he had to mourn Grayson's death. But that healing process is what gives way to the celebration of life. And that's what this event is about. And that's what I think so many of these corporate organizations see. And a lot of them have been with us for a long time, which is very unusual in the nonprofit world. And this isn't something that, you look at and go, oh, we're so good, we're so wonderful. No, we've just been able to channel something that everyone cares about, and it's meaningful. And like I said, our community is the fuel behind all of this.
Yeah, no, it's I think it's interesting in the state of our world and the state of our country. People are hungry for these types of opportunities, patriotic opportunities in particular. to support, celebrate, and engage with. And I think this is a perfect time for Carry the Load to see some exponential growth. I think it's a great opportunity, and we hope we can just be a small part of that with our community and our viewership. So as we begin to wrap up, guys, if you could help our audience understand how to find you, maybe a little bit for those that are in North Texas or just Texas at large, what's happening Memorial Day weekend?
Yeah, I'll start off with that. Yeah, one thing we didn't really touch on, but we kind of danced around here is when all those three relays come to Dallas on Sunday, Memorial Weekend, which this year I think it's the 29th of May, down at Rivershawn Park, right down at the in the heart of Dallas. You will see and I like how Todd kind of framed it. You know, I've always used the term celebration. It really is a celebration of life. It's a celebration of all those that did give the ultimate sacrifice. And yes, we mourn them, but we celebrate them because they are true American heroes. And I get choked up every time I think about that. But there is a celebration unlike anything else you will see. If you come down to Rivershawn Park on Sunday, May 29th, when you see all these relays coming in, you see all the people out there, you will see thousands of American flags in the ground. And if you can picture this, for about 24 hours or so, you're going to have people based at Rivershawn Park and then marching up and down the Katy Trail, which is about a 7-mile round trip on the Katy Trail. And the idea, again, is to do that walk. And again, you don't have to walk all 20 hours if you can't do it. You can walk half a mile, one lap, whatever you want to do. But the idea is to walk as a memory for all those that gave everything for us. And if it means you hurt a little bit, means you get a few blisters, a few muscle cramps along the way, well, just remember, it's that good pain pushing out the bad pain. It's that pain that maybe you didn't serve like I didn't, but you have friends who did or a relative who did, and you're doing it for them. And so it's a very special day, and it all culminates on Monday, Memorial Day, where they have another celebration at Rivershawn Park. And it's just a very, very special day. And I will tell you, if you're willing to give, which I hope you are, I hope your listeners are, I'd love you to join my team. So I'll give you a plug to my team. And basically all the team means, and Todd can echo this, I think it's just more for bragging rights than anything, just so we can say, hey, I was ranked 5th on the list or 10th on the list. The team's getting donations. So I'd love for you to join my team so I can kind of go up that ladder of donations. So the way you get a hold of my my page on the Carry the Load website is go to carrytheload.org/go/Grayson 2022. And Grayson is Grayson. So that's how you get on.
We'll make sure to get the link embedded in all of our social media channels and champion Team Grayson to hopefully take that top spot. If people want to volunteer,
it's not going to happen. Sorry, CJ, to interrupt you, but it's not going to happen because Stephen Hawley always swoops in and wins that darn thing. Am I wrong, Todd?
No, you never know. Yeah. We could have a wealthy benefactor find us and say, we're going to take them out.
Terry and I don't have enough family members combined to overtake him. That guy's got more family than I've ever heard of.
Well, for those that want to volunteer, those that want to give their time because they just don't have much to give financially, how can they get involved?
Yeah, there's 2 ways they can do it. Number one is you go to the website, carrytheload.org, and you're going to find an opportunity. It says right there on the front, donate, volunteer, participate. And so we want people to volunteer in that regard. But I think the main thing, a lot of people are always saying, okay, well, what exactly is it? What are you doing? Why are you walking? First of all, just show up. I mean, like, number one rule in business, just show up, because that's half the battle. And so we want people to just show up, and you'll see there are enough people there. There are enough, mentors just walking around. Just watch what they do, and you'll see very quickly. But the more specific answer is, when you start walking, and that's the best way to start out volunteering, by the way. Walking, what it means is it tells the families who lost those people the death of your loved one mattered. And so when they're out there walking in honor of their son, their daughter, their brother, their father, and they see, some guy like you or me who they don't know come up alongside them and just give them a nod, that fulfills them in a way that we'll never understand. So that walking is an unbelievable symbol. But, before we get too far, here's the last thing I'm going to plug about our organization today. We got a lot of great people, and there are a lot of great things about Carry the Load. But how many organizations do you know like this who have somebody come up from within their ranks and write and publish a song about the organization?
No doubt about it. This may actually be the coolest part of the engagement that I've had thus far, because it's in my Spotify playlist, and I've had friends ask me what is that. So I'll let you take it from there. But no, this is really cool. This is a great way for us to wrap up our discussion today too.
Well, yeah, I'll set it up real simply, and then I'll let the mastermind take control. But we had a guy by the name of Dr. Terry Gemas come to the organization and say, I just kind of had this epiphany, and I started writing. And he came up with a song, and it's a cool song too. It's on my list. But I mean, Terry, how did you come up with the song? What was the sequence of events? I mean, we obviously know the motivation, but I mean, I never knew that the orthopedic surgeon could write songs in addition.
Well, I didn't either. I'll tell you that. But here's kind of the background of it. So in 2016, I got up one morning. It was one of those things. I had just a little epiphany, if you will, or what have you. And I just got up and got a whole bunch of blank sheets of paper and just started writing my feelings about America and patriotism and things like that. Really, it was just for my personal information, just kind of put down in words. Well, a couple of days go by, I find myself scratching out lines and rewriting lines and things like that. A couple of days later, I find myself even putting them in a poetic kind of form. And then before I knew it, I was like looking at it and say, it's kind of moves pretty smoothly. It's almost, I mean, maybe it's a song. I don't know. It could be a song. I don't know. And you're talking to a guy who has absolutely no musical talent at all. Can't sing. I can't play a musical instrument. And one thing led to another, and I met a gentleman by the name of Wyatt Easterling, who is a very successful songwriter, producer in Nashville, Tennessee. And we started the process in January of 2017 of Skyping every weekend for about 3 months, putting together a song. And so I'd be remiss at saying I wrote the song. No, it was my inspiration, but it was equal on both ends of writing the song. He put the music to it. And in April 2017, we recorded in Nashville, and it just went from there. And it's on iPhones and or it's on iTunes and Spotify and all that. And let me just finish this by saying, CJ, that the inspiration for me when it came down to it, when you listen to the song, is it tells the story of Clint Bruce. And when Clint and Todd had kind of touched on this, that Carry the Load kind of started out of somewhat of a sense of anger, if you will. And Clint will tell the story that he was hosting a memorial Day party at his house. And what made him disgruntled, if you know Clint's a former SEAL. So he had come home and he was very dismayed by the fact that most civilians really cared about Memorial Weekend as far as like it was another day off from work, but not what the true meaning of it was. And at his own party, he just went in, put his shoes on, and grabbed his rucksack and started walking around White Rock Lake. And as he tells the story much more eloquently than I do, a pretty put together older gentleman looked at him and looked at Clint and said, "Who are you carrying?" And Clint looked at him and it kind of like he realized that this gentleman could tell that Clint was carrying something heavy on him. And that's really how Carry the Load was born. Him and Stephen Holly together formed the foundation. So the song, when you listen to the song, you'll understand a little bit about the story because it tells a little bit about his story and how the whole movement was born.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So the name of the song is Carry the Load.
Right.
You can find it on iTunes, Spotify. It's been downloaded a bunch. I don't know how many hundreds of thousands or millions of times, but it's impactful. If this doesn't get you, if you're in the audience, we're going to play it for you now as a way to wrap up our time together. Guys, I can't thank you enough for spending almost an hour with us and talking about an organization that clearly you guys are passionate about, as are many, many other people, and something that's needed. And, funny enough, something that I feel is beginning to unify our country. So, again, thanks for all you do. Find these guys, carrytheload.org. Find them online, find them on your social media channels, follow. This is the time of year. There's so much happening, daily updates. And if you live in North Texas, or look, if you live in New York and you got nothing to do on Memorial Day weekend, book that plane ticket to Dallas. Come join us and be part of the celebration, because I think it's worth it. If you participate once, you'll want to participate every year the rest of your life. I think that's it for this week. Guys,
thanks for being a champion, so CJ. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And we're going to make sure that the Cutting Edge podcast does everything that we can to share it with everybody in our community and see if we can really catch this thing on fire.
Awesome. Thank you.
Appreciate you guys. And until next episode, find us on LinkedIn, find us on Spotify, find us on Apple Podcasts, the Cutting Edge Podcast. And with that, let's roll the song and wrap this up. Have a great afternoon.
Thought of all the soldiers who died to defend this country of ours in some foreign land. How they gave all and lived by a code only a soldier knows. I'll carry that load tonight for all those who sacrificed for our freedom.